Baltimore City Council Ways and Means Committee back for ordinance 24-0521, ordinance of estimates for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025. Eric Costello, councilman from the 11th District, chair of the committee. Far left, Councilman Isaac Gitzi Schleifer, 5th District, member of the committee. Councilman Chris Burnett, 8th District, member of the committee. Councilwoman Odette Ramos, 14th District. Far right, Councilman Mark Conway, 4th District. Councilwoman Felicia Porter, 10th District, joined to my immediate right by Marguerite Kern, staff to the committee, and representatives of the mayor's and the council president's office. We're here today for the state's attorney's office. State's Attorney Bates, if you could start by introducing first and last name and position title of all the people that are going to be testifying today, and then jump into your presentation. I understand you'll be able to do your presentation in 25 minutes. State's Attorney, take it away, and then after introductions, you can jump right in the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman Costello. Thank you very much. Just want to say good morning to all the members here. Very happy to be here. Today, I'll do most of the testifying unless there's a specific question, but I do have with me, I just want to talk about my executive team. I do have to be the right of me, my chief of staff and the deputies, Angela Galliano. Next to her, Stuart Beckman, he's in charge of HR for our office. Have James Bentley, he's in charge of communication for our office. Deputy Greg Solomon, she's in charge of specialty courts, some of the misdemeanor courts. And we also have Catherine Flynn behind me. She's our operations director, one of our deputies as well. And behind me is Tom Donnelly, the deputy in terms of violent crime. We're very happy to be here today. We'll go ahead and jump, I guess, straight into the PowerPoint. But before I do that, I would like to have everybody from the state's attorney's office. These are the division chiefs that are here from the office. Just please stand up. And so we brought our whole team, but yes, there are a number of prosecutors still in the district court and the circuit court making sure business gets handled as well. I thought it was very important. Thank you very much. Because they're the individuals, when you look at this PowerPoint, they're the ones that did the work. They did the heavy lifting. If there's a specific question, we wanted to make sure we had everyone here so we could answer the questions, if possible. But I did want to go ahead and really focus, and what I think this PowerPoint will do, it focuses on the work that they were able to accomplish. And when I say it's they, it's the entire office. I want to go ahead and talk about our organizational chart. And looking at our organizational chart, one of the things that's been very important is to see that we do have a number of new positions. One of the things I'd like to highlight is the addition of Stuart Beckman. He's my executive team. He's Chief of Human Resources and Finance. He joined our team last fall, and he's a very welcome addition. We felt that it was important with an organization of our size to make sure we had someone leading the HR division so that we did not put ourselves in a negative positions at times. We also created a post-conviction litigation unit, or PCLU. This represents my commitment to ensuring that justice persists at every single stage of the criminal proceeding. This unit conducts thoughtful analysis of criminal convictions obtained by trial prosecutors and defends these convictions in post-conviction hearings in Baltimore City courts. Basically, what we found out is we had prosecutors that had a conviction. Once they received the conviction, the individual take an appeal, and then they want to come back later and say that, hey, you know, my attorney messed up. Something happened with this conviction. It's not an appeal, but we want to take that work off the prosecutor, so we have a division that focuses on that. We also have within our homicide division a recently launched cold case unit. This ensures that these unique cases are investigated with better coordination, specialization, and partnership with Baltimore City Police Department. So you may have a case that was a murder case about 3, 4, 8, 10, 12 years ago. With the new advancements of science, we now have the ability to work with the police department, look at some of these older cases, and now charge. We recently charged a cold case from about 3, 4 years ago of a Washington, D.C. police officer that just happened to be here. We did that investigation, and that was the announcement of that cold case division. We also recently launched our Older Adult and Disabled Persons Unit, or ODPU. It's housed in our Economic Crimes Division, and that's with the goal of being a resource to these vulnerable population. If you want to look at our agency overview, we talk about our mission, and we also talk about a couple other things. One of the things we do want to talk about is what we have talked about in the past is that, we're focused on the declining crime rates and ensuring availability to staff, continued external partnerships, working with everybody. We've talked about the frozen pins and how we're able to get those unfrozen, the work that we need to do. But I also think I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that I do recognize that there is a budget crunch. I do recognize where we are as a city. But still, I just still also want to sit down and put the wish list out there as well. But I also think it's important to understand what we've done as an office with the prosecutors that we have. But still making sure that you understand what our focus and our hope is. We also talk about enhancing technology and resources to aid in retention of allowing enhanced public transparency and help with caseloads. And so one of the things we're realizing is there more technology out there, especially advances for prosecutors and how we do this. I do want to acknowledge that our office was able to secure a grant from Senator Van Hollen to allow us to help with this. So we're not only looking at the city council, we're looking at other ways to try to bring this type of technology into the office that will better serve the residents of Baltimore City. One of the things I do want to talk about is the hires. When we first came in, and actually from the election July 2022, there were 72 new prosecutors have been hired. When I took over state's attorney January 3rd, 2023, we had 55 open positions for state's attorney. As you can see, that we had 72 new hires as prosecutors, 16 law clerks, 112 new support staff, and right now we have 16 state's attorney positions that are open. What happens is that judicial law clerks apply and they have to finish their law clerk position. These individuals have already passed the bar. They're waiting to come. We make offers, and then come September 1st when their judicial law clerk is finished, then they come and work in our office as state's attorneys. We have 16 of those. Therefore, we only have 3 remaining open positions or pins in the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. So we feel in terms of retention, the things that we've really been able to focus on has been absolutely phenomenal. We have a phenomenal training program that happens in the district court. And so we feel very positive about where we are. When I also arrived, and this is the slide I do want to talk about, a couple of divisions I want to focus on, major investigations, MIU. Can Sam Mildenberg please stand up? So Sam Mildenberg is the head of MIU, Major Investigations, and that's a very important division for us. That division is the division that focuses and supports GVRS. That division is the division that looked at the issues when we had the juveniles, and there were 20 juveniles that were recently charged for a car theft ring. It was just Sam Mildenberg. She's a former prosecutor in the office, left, went to the Attorney General's office, was in the U.S. Attorney's office, and that's type of information experience that has been brought back. I think between herself, Laura Ruppersberger, you look at Jeannie Cannell, but Laura was also in the U.S. Attorney's office. Megan Green was in the Attorney General's office. Those 3 came back to fill out that division. That is the division and the unit that would do the major investigation, support with its GVRS, support the U.S. Attorney's office and some of their investigations. And one of the things that we also want to do is we recently focused on all of these car thefts, almost 12,000 car thefts. We had the opportunity to speak with the new director for Baltimore City, Mr. McClary. And speaking to him from HSI, Homeland Security, we want to put together a task force that will look and partner with them, our federal partners, to focus on car thefts. This is a division that will do it for us. This is the division that, as we have more experienced prosecutors, that will eventually come to this division. And so for us, that division basically wasn't even working when we walked in the door. But Sam Mildenberg and her team have done a phenomenal job of getting that division to a place where we're taking on more cases, challenging cases, taking down organizations that are very violent in our city, and we've been able to focus on them. I want to talk about the older and disabled persons unit. Could I get Sherry Green to please stand up? I think a couple members of her team are here. So this is very important because one of the things that we realized, thank you, with the older adults, we felt that they just didn't have a place that they felt comfortable. They would oftentimes be the eyes and ears of cases, and there wasn't someone or a group that they felt comfortable. One of the things we need to do is reach out to the community, make sure they felt comfortable, understanding that older adults, and this is through our economic crimes divisions, that oftentimes they're victims of economic crimes. So this division has reached out. They've done 16 separate events. We've done large-scale events for older adults throughout the city, educating them on what's going on, making sure they're hopefully not victims of financial crime and things like that. This, once again, this division didn't even exist. Now that they're from the economic crime division, we've been able to build that out a great deal. The other division I want to talk about is victim witness. We receive around $2 million from the governor for our victim witness, in which Amanda Grantham, are you here? Could you please stand up? Amanda was one of the first hires that we made. She was in Baltimore County. One of the things that was really phenomenal there with their victim witness division is that they knew what was going on with the victims and witnesses. One of the things we found out was state's attorney's office would unfortunately go to court, not know whether the witness or victims were going to come, because that prosecutor had all the they were tasked with being the individual, reaching out to the witnesses, to the victims, keeping everybody straight. And that's hard sometimes for the prosecutors in court and in trial all the time. This division has changed its philosophy and focus under Ms. Grantham, in which when the case comes in, the victim or witness immediately is given to one of the court coordinators. That victim or witness, they develop that relationship, they tell them what's going on, keep contact with them. If the case is postponed 2 or 3 times, they have that contact and making sure that we know where the witness and victims are, and therefore they're in court. The other thing that's been very important, we can go ahead and go to the next slide, is that, with the victim witness, are we having contacts with individuals that have been witnesses or victims? Are we able to move them? You see, in 2022, there were in 2022, there were 173 contacts with the victim and witness division. Last year, we had 319 contacts. That means we're having more contacts with victims, witnesses. We're able to move them more quickly. We're partnering with the police department and Monzi to make sure that we keep our witnesses and victims safe. And therefore, having that connection, having the build out, having the number of individuals that division has really allowed us, we feel, to have stronger cases by having witness and victims involved. One of the things we also did in terms of the infrastructure, we wrote a strategic plan. And the strategic plan kind of lays out where we want to go in the next 3 to 4 years within the state's attorney's office in our future. To me, all this is important because when I ran, we all, what do you run on? We ran on the infrastructure, the state's attorney's office, rebuilding that office, and this first part talks about that. We ran on violent crime. Next part will talk about that, and we also ran on quality of life crime. But the strategic plan lays out where we're going. Now, in terms of what's been going on, in terms of the cases we've charged and cases we've closed, we charged 2,973 cases. We closed 2,997 cases. As you see in 2022, they closed 4,642. Without a doubt, I have to say the state's attorney's office in 2022 did an amazing job in closing out that many cases. They're coming off of COVID, and they were just absolutely crushed. They did so much. We did see a lot of burnout because of the work that they did. They also charged 3,511 cases. So where's the drop-off? Drop-off is a couple of things. You'll be able to see we're starting to convict individuals the first time. Therefore, they're not repeat offenders, so we're not charging them 2, 3, 4 times. We're also a little more selective of the cases that we're charging, and so that plays a role. But also, I think there's some individuals have definitely gotten the notion that we're not playing in terms of the criminal justice system. So when you look at all that, that's where we believe some of the drop-off has been. In terms of jury trial convictions, one of the ways in which you leave a strong impression to individuals committing crimes, you have to hold them accountable. And they may want to try you and go to trial. So you see in 2022, the state's attorney's office had a 46% jury trial conviction rate. We've now in 2023, it's 67%. That's a 21% increase, which we feel has absolutely been phenomenal. It's a testament to the hard work of the ladies and gentlemen in the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. But to me, I think it really speaks volumes to the supervisors that you see here, because they've taken the time to sit with the younger prosecutors, to sit in trials, to make sure they're skilled, and that the things that they were not receiving in terms of tutelage and fundamentals that they needed, we're now starting to see that come into play more often. And also, they're working so hard on their skill set, and we can see this during what they've been able to do. Homicide Division. Could Mike Dunty please stand up? Mike Dunty is the head of the Homicide Division. You'll see in 2022, his division had 98 homicide convictions. So those are individuals that have been convicted for taking the life of a loved one of someone. And then in 2023, now it's 136. So that has been a dramatic increase of 38 more individuals that would be on the street that were killing individuals that are no longer on the street. And his division has really done an amazing job, led by Michael Dunty. This is the federally adopted firearm cases, and these are cases in which an individual could qualify to be charged federally based on their record, and they have a handgun. Most likely, they're probably looking at 10 years on up. In 2022, there were 66 cases from the state's attorney's office sent to the federal side for prosecution. In 2023, there were 90. And so that was the most in terms of federal adoption in the past 15 years. That's a 26% increase. Now, one of the things that I always get teased about is you sat up there and said, if you bring your toothbrush, if you have an illegal handgun, and these were the individuals I was talking about specifically. If you're a felon, these are the repeat violent offenders. These are individuals that have been adjudicated to have felonies and that cannot have illegal handguns. And also, these are individuals that have drugs and using their gun to protect their drugs. In 2022, there were 98 individuals that received the fire without the possibility of parole. When you're convicted of this account, this charge, the minimum you could receive is 5 years without the possibility of parole, up to 15 years. There were 98 individuals convicted of these two charges in 1998. There have been 164 individuals convicted of this charge in 2022, and now it's 2023. 66 more individuals we've convicted of this, and these are the individuals that we've taken off the streets with these charges. And so what does this say? 390 violent offenders have been taken off the streets by the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office in 2023. 164 for the felon in possession, those two counts, 136 for homicide, 90 from the federal adoption. And so some people may say, well, what's going on here? One of the things I'd like to say is we're smart on crime because we are targeting the right people. We're not just targeting anybody, the kid who makes a mistake. We're targeting individuals that have either killed somebody, that have been in and out the system time and time again. Right there, the National Institute of Criminal Justice, they did a report. They focused on Washington, D.C. We have about 580,000. Washington, D.C. has about 670-some thousand, around 100 more people than us. And what they said from their study is they felt it was as few as almost 200 people that were the drivers of that type of violence that they see in Washington, D.C. We also feel that it's probably 200 to 400, maybe 500 people that are the main drivers of the violence that we see in Baltimore City. And what we're saying is we're focused on getting those individuals to hold them accountable. If you're holding them accountable, then now we see the traumatic drop in the murder rate that we've seen in Baltimore City. And what does that mean for us in our future? And one of the things we also want to talk about, mandatory minimum, and this is where you can see in 2022, there were 84 years of prison time for the firearm drug trafficking. We gave 346 years of prison time our first year for that count. And then felon in possession, 576 years of prison time. And then we've given 1,029 years for a total of 660 years for those two counts. And we were 1,375 years. What this says is that previously in 2022, if depending on the prosecutor, they would either call the mandatory minimum or they would not. It was a roll of the dice if you received the prosecutor who wanted to call that count. We have a guidance that says, unless told otherwise, you should call this count. However, if this count is not the type that this individual should receive or the evidence doesn't warrant that or show it, let us know. Not every person will receive the fire without. It's a case-by-case basis. However, we're first starting to say to hold this individual accountable based on their record. But then if there are other factors to say they should not be receiving this 5 years without the possibility of parole, then we take that into consideration. And what does all this mean? We are at a terrific position, I feel, right now in our city. We have the opportunity since 2011 to be under 200 murders at the rate that we're going right now. If we continue the projections that we're looking at, we could maybe even get to 188. which would absolutely be phenomenal, the lives that we will have been able to save based on the way that we have targeted the specific individuals, the right individuals, who are killing, who are carrying the guns, who are the repeat violent offenders. That's why I always, once again, say smart on crime. Not just going and grabbing everybody, but grabbing those individuals that have terrorized our community time and time and time again. And once again, I know a lot of times people want to give me the accolades, but really the accolades go to the individuals sitting behind me and the people you don't see in the courtroom that are constantly on trial, that are constantly doing the work. I do also want to talk about the GVRS cases. This pretty much shows what we were able to do. GVRS is the mayor's signature program, group violence reduction strategy. Basically in Western District and Southwestern Districts, about 107 cases, of which we closed 68. There are 107 still open. We had 39 guilty, number 28 stet null pros. That could have been stet null pros because it could have been attached to another case for a number of reasons. We had one not guilty. So you see just GVRS in those two districts has given us 107 cases. So when you talk about the expansion to 7 more districts, it would be easy 700, 800, 900 more cases. And there's a lot of paperwork and everything that does come along with that and making sure. It's a lot of work for the prosecutors, and specifically, remember I mentioned MIU as well as the narcotics division that they must keep up with. But it's not just about locking individuals up. Let's talk about the diversion courts. The previous administration was very, very heavy with diversion, and we've continued to try to make sure we do that. The previous administration had 1,047 individuals do diversion. We've given 1,100 individual diversion type cases. We want to focus on the violent offenders, but if you're not violent, we do not want to just go ahead and have you have criminal records. But we do recognize sometimes being involved in the criminal justice system is a way individuals can now be directed to receive services and resources that they may not get otherwise. The big thing I talked about all the time is the citation docket. And the citation docket is very important to talk about because one of the things I think there was a concern with was talking about the race. And we did not want to make sure that we disproportionately gave citations to Black and brown individuals. You see, we kept the data out of the 141 citations I think that were issued that we see, well, actually more than 100, 200 and some odd citations, if I'm not mistaken, that were issued. 53% went to African Americans. Baltimore City, 65% African American city. However, we can see the Caucasian white was 27.6, 27% of the population of Baltimore City is white. And then when you see the other, we believe that's the Latino population as well as the not specified. For whatever reason, that information was not necessarily captured by the police officers when they were writing the citations. It's one of the things that we will talk about because we want to make sure that we don't just focus on one particular group. We try to be as fair as possible with the citations. And we also look to see the age of individuals. We're not just focused on young people, but it's across the board. The citations are being issued for everyone. The big thing that has shaken me up that I've put a lot of focus on is juvenile. Could I please have Pam stand up? Pam is the head of my juvenile division and has really been down in Annapolis with us, help us change the law. This has been shocking. In 2022, carjacking thefts in Baltimore City with juveniles were 54. 2023, these are the first 5 months of 2022, January through May. There was 54 carjackings and thefts that the state's attorney's office charged. Last year, there were 64 through through May 14th. This year, we've already charged 140 juveniles of car theft and carjacking, with theft and carjacking. Those numbers have exploded. Firearms. In 2022, the first 5 months, there were 18 individuals charged with firearms. Last year, there were 51. The positive is this year has been 36. So that tells me the message is getting through to young people about carrying illegal handguns. However, robberies. When we talk about quality of life crime, when I talk to individuals, when individuals leave the city, and I'm always asking why individuals left the city, and 9 times out of 10, they're like, I was robbed. My son was robbed coming from school. My wife was robbed. The first 2022, there were 6 robberies charged in Baltimore City. 2023, there were 33 robberies charged. And this, once again, the first 5 months. This year has already charged 163 robberies with juveniles. To me, if there's a major problem in terms of the quality of life that's driving individuals out of Baltimore City, we have to get the car theft, carjacking, and the robberies together. Once again, we've reached out to the HSI, Homeland Security, and that's the new deputy down for Baltimore, McCarthy. We want to put together a global, a task force statewide with RAT, with BPD, our office, to really focus on this, because to be honest, one of the things I honestly believe, and the numbers for car thefts have dropped the month of April, and that is the one thing that changed, is the port closed. So you cannot tell me that if the port was open, we would not still see these numbers. By the port closing, I honestly believe, and we'll be able to have a task force to look into this, that individuals steal the vehicles to have them shipped in terms of out the country. And that is what I think Homeland Security will allow us to sit down and really look at, to hold the organizations, not just the young people, but the organizations. And once again, we went to Annapolis. We focused on changing the organized gang statute that'll make this even easier for us to hold an entire organization accountable. Then you look at assaults. Look at assaults. They pretty much remain very similar in terms of young people for assaults. That could be just something as a school fight sometimes. And drug possessions, and their numbers have been very similar with juvenile cases. But once again, it's the robberies and car thefts that have been astonishing to us. And with us, you know, we want to look and say that our first year, we honestly believe, has been very successful. In the sense, the goals that we plotted out in terms of where we would be, we're already almost in year 3 in terms of where our plan was. And once again, I can't give enough credit to the men and women of Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, not just the prosecutors, but the support staff that has given the support. We've also had to upgrade technology with MDAC. That's online filing, and Baltimore City was the last. And the State's Attorney's Office was led by Deputy Catherine Flynn, did a phenomenal job of leading us through that process. Our IT team, they did a phenomenal job. So it's everything that you've thrown and that has been thrown at the prosecutors and the office, they have handled 100% with the ability to continuously make sure that the residents of Baltimore City are first. And I just really want to say thank you for all the hard work that they've done. But we do feel that the numbers have backed up the hard work that the men and ladies have been doing for the State's Attorney's Office. Thank you.
Thank you. Schleifer, Burnett, and colleagues, we're going to limit to one question apiece, and we'll cycle through as quickly as possible. Okay. Burnett? Sure thing. Conway?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. State's Attorney. Appreciate the work you and your team have done, and it's been great work with you thus far. I wanted to ask a question about what efforts we have around drug diversion, folks that are dealing with addiction across the city, and you know, what programming or support the State's Attorney offers to folks who are dealing with drug addiction. Do we have drug diversion programming, or and what does that look like? How many folks do we serve?
We do. Actually, I'm going to have Deputy Greg Solomon answer that question. She has the deputy, but she also, as a prosecutor, led the drug treatment program. She is the deputy that deals with that, and also deputy who deals with the citation docket. So I'd ask her to go ahead and answer that to give a better understanding about where we are with that.
Yes, good morning. We have the Drug Treatment Court program in Circuit Court, in which individuals can enter into the program. They will be placed on probation for 2 years. During the 2 years, they will be referred to services, whether or not those services are for inpatient or outpatient. We also provide them with wraparound services such as employment and job searching services that may be available. We also have in the district court, the adult recovery court, in which we provide drug treatment services to individuals as well.
Do we have data that you can share to show how many folks we work with, folks that are receiving services and outcomes from the program? Just, you know, noting that, of course, we're all aware of the recent article that came out. Myself and my colleagues are beginning to think about what we can do to better help folks who are dealing with addiction. And of course, a lot of the work that you guys are dealing with interfaces with drugs, drug dealing, addiction, and folks who are dealing with addiction, whether or not those folks are stealing in some capacity or are being preyed upon by drug dealers. Whatever the case is, you guys are going to be an important partner here. So are you able to share that data with the council so we can help think about?
Yes, we can share that data for you. We are indeed collecting that data. We can provide that data to you.
Thank you so much. That is a request, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to go back to the citation docket slide that you have here and talk a little bit more about that. So I serve on the Public Safety Committee, so we've gone through to look at this for a while. And I just want to get a sense, if you could get into a little bit more detail about the implementation of the citation docket. Are we getting ready to do not handwritten, but technology for the officers? Are we, expanding that? Can someone talk a little bit about just more than?
Yes.
Real
I'll
quick,
have Trish.
make sure if you're testifying up at the lectern, please hit the button on the far right at the bottom.
I also have a stoop in my desk over here if you want to be taller. I'm fine.
We have Trish Dero. She actually, her and Deputy Solomon are the ones who developed the citation docket. Ms. Deros can talk about, she's the one training the police officers. She's trained everyone. So if there's truly an expert in the citation docket, I'd ask Ms. Deros to be allowed to address.
So we are making progress with the citation docket. We are seeing more and more citations. More and more citations are starting to be issued. We expect more and more citations now that the warm weather is starting and more people are out to be issued citations. I have trained the Baltimore City Police in conjunction with Lieutenant Rosenblatt from their education and training. We've created a joint PowerPoint that we both jointly teach roll call trainings, which we did in the beginning of May. So we expect them to now be issuing citations and issuing them to be legally sufficient for us to proceed on those cases. Most of the cases we have seen historically up until now have been issued by either the Alcohol Tobacco Commission or the Comptroller's Office. We have some spread out through MTA. Morgan State University has issued several citations from campus issues. We have people who are showing up, and we are doing community service hours for most of them and offering them some wraparound services if they wish to engage in them. It is a voluntary process for them to engage in services, but they are in the courtroom and being offered to them.
Thank you. As a follow-up, could we get the data by police district in terms of issuing of citations? And then the sort of there's the issuing of the citations and then what has happened afterwards, in terms of what you talked about with community service and that kind of thing. That would be super.
We do capture them by district.
Yep, Naya, you got that. So she wants the number of citation docket citations issued by police district, broken down by police district.
And result as where they are in the process of what has happened after that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I did have a quick question. So you're the hot lady today. What is the connection? I believe I had this conversation about the intersection between 311 and the citation docket last year. Are you all coordinating at all? Because most residents, when they kind of submit those quality of life crimes, they're going, well, not quality of life crimes, but quality of life issues, excuse me. They're going through 311. Are you all collaborating with 311 at all for the citation docket?
No.
Okay.
They would be referred probably to the police department or a law enforcement agency who would then be the responding agency to issue the citation to come to the citation docket.
Sure. So I figured that. How many of those have we been catching through 311?
That's not data that we would be able to collect. The police department would be able to collect it, but it's not reflected in any reports that I've seen.
Sure. So I guess I'm just trying to really understand kind of the service workflow. So if residents are submitting those quality of life issues through 311 and the police officers are responding, they are whether they are or are not submitting or following up with a citation, that seems like it's a large gap there that we're missing with the citation docket. Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman, so what we can do prior to BPD's hearing, or what we can try to do, it may take a little bit longer, we can go through the 311 requests that have come in and do a cross-reference with the issues, some of the cases that could be through the citation docket, just to do an overlay to see what's coming in through 311 and what is actually enforceable through the citation docket. And then we can try to, again, I have to work with the team to make sure that we can get this information. We can then try to cross-reference and determine if a citation was issued. That might be harder to get, but I can at least try to pull that data for you.
Yeah, and that would be great. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a formal request. It's just just an understanding of workflow. If we are instructing residents to kind of use the 311 system and they're looking towards your citation docket to answer those quality of life questions, there should be some sort of overlap there or some sort of synergy between the two. Thanks.
Thank you. Burnett?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. State's Attorney, can you, since we're talking about citations, might as well stay the course here. On your slide breakdown, you noted that there were 45 bench warrants issued for individuals who had received citations. Can we get a breakdown of what those warrants were for?
The bench warrants are for individuals who were issued citations, who were served with their trial date on the citation. They failed to appear, but we did not issue a warrant the first time they were served to be in court. We asked the court to reset and reissue, and new summonses were mailed to the address that the individual provided to the law enforcement agency. They did not come the second time warrants were issued. They are from many agencies. Most of them were probably either from the MTA. There were a handful from Baltimore City Police, but most of them were probably MTA citations or MDTA citations. Some were Amtrak because of the individuals who pass through Amtrak. They get charged with theft of services. A lot of them do not live in the immediate area, and they do not come to court.
Okay, I have more questions, but I'll wait for the next round.
Come right back, or unless you have a direct follow-up to that.
Yeah, I think it would be, I would just say, it would be helpful. I know in the last budget cycle, there was sort of a breakdown provided to the council of which agencies were issuing the citations. I think that helps us get a better picture of what level of law enforcement, where, it gives more context, I think, than just sort of a simple.
So you want or I guess because the original question was what was the infraction?
Yeah, it was the bench warrants, but it sounds like there's sort of like a multitude of factors that influence how we got to the number that I think would be helpful for the council.
So you're looking for the infraction that led to the bench warrant as well as the agency responsible for issuing the citation?
Yeah, I think that would be sort of a separate thing, like just for all the citations, it would be helpful to know which agencies.
Do we have updated information on that?
I believe that is captured in our database.
Perfect. If you guys could.
We do capture that information in our data. So one of the things that we do, we even have an interfacing data dashboard so we can try to have an understanding what's going on with the data. We'll just go ahead and get you that information.
Naya, you got that? Thank you very much. Thank you. Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You may be able to answer this, Mr. State's Attorney. I know we talked about in the past about the citation docket. Yeah. I know we discussed in the past maybe doing a report looking into the citation docket and just understanding the interactions and the outcomes from it. Have we considered following through on that? And if so, when do you think we might be able to have that analysis?
Well, one, we still would like to do that report. Our problem was, to be honest, didn't understand the heavy lift it was to get everybody, specifically BPD, on board. One of the things you kind of realize, and I guess I didn't understand, for the past 6 to 7 years, the police haven't really engaged in the quality of life issues for the most part. So you have a whole generation of officers that really didn't understand how to do that. And so now it's also BPD had specific policies based on the previous administration that they've now had to realize were in conflict. So it's been a heavy lift in trying to get everybody. Then under the consent decree, what can we legally talk and train them on? So it's been one thing after another thing after another. These are problems that we just didn't understand and know about. I will say this, we are now moving in the right direction. Having Ms. Deros there, Lieutenant Rosenblatt there, the police commissioner and I, we meet once a month. We sit down and discuss. My executive team and his executive team, BPD, we meet once a month. And every single, for the past 6, 7 months, the number one topic has been citation docket. As we've had to work through these processes, I would say, I don't really, hopefully by the end of the year, I believe we can maybe put together some sort of a report, but we just had to first a report a lot. We're able to do a report when we're running. We are crawling. So we got to learn how to walk before we can really run. That's why I do believe getting through the summer with the citation docket, I think will be very good. And then I do believe we can then begin to try to look at those numbers to put together some report October, November, to have it to the city council sometime in December.
And as a direct follow-up, Mr. Chair, how prepared do you think we are for that summer rollout? I know we've been seeing a lot more coordination with the commissioner and Monsi and otherwise. We have that agreement down, I believe. How prepared do you think we are for that real integration and interaction going forward?
Well, I'll begin to answer, then I ask Ms. Deros, since she's the one training and talking to them. Okay. But one of the things that I do understand, also the Axon, they now are able to have an app on their phone that lists the laws. That's really big because before we try to give them cheat sheets, but once again, if they've never seen the law before, now I'm saying, okay, write a law for gaming or lording or trespassing or one of the other theft. They don't necessarily know, so then they leave out one of the important elements, so then we have to throw it away. We've even gone so far to say that Ms. Deros has the ability, before they throw everything away, to look at it to see if we can actually still proceed legally. And there was little things like that. So Ms. Deros, you want to follow up now in terms of how much we feel they are actually prepared right now?
You're good. I know, it's the red light. There we go. You're good now. Yep.
So in April, we met with the Baltimore City Police Department's internal review process. They review the charging documents. We met with them. There was a group of about 8 of us. We went over all of the requirements of what a citation needs to be, how to fill it out completely properly. We agreed on things that need to be done, things that possibly they're not sure of, that they will then scan it to me and I'll review it and I'll make the determination on whether or not they should move forward with that citation and send it to us for prosecution. We did a training PowerPoint with, I believe, I did 4 districts. We did them at 6:30 in the morning roll call trainings, and we did them at 2:30 in the afternoon roll call trainings at several of the districts. When I wasn't available, Lieutenant Rosenblatt took over and used my portion of the PowerPoint and trained. We jointly trained together. The officers asked a lot of questions, and hopefully we provided them answers. They now have all of their information, not only on a cheat card that they can keep, but they also have it on their pocket cops and on their phones. They are working towards electronic citations. That is more difficult to do because historically they're state charging documents and they come in books. And other jurisdictions still have not moved to the electronic criminal citation yet. So they are being completely filled out. I have in the last week, I was in a training last week, I have looked at ones that came over this week, and they are much better than they have been historically. The ones that were rejected internally, the number seems to have gone down. And these are just Baltimore City Police. I don't get them in advance from any other agency. So since our training's in the end of April and early May, it seems to be that they are issuing more citations and that they are issuing them properly.
Good, very good.
And if I can also chime in, I think not only the police commissioner, but actually when the mayor and I sat down and had a long discussion about everything, I think the mayor, without a doubt, is 1,000% supportive of to say, hey, I understand the citation, I see what's going on. So we're working more collaboratively now than we ever have in the past. So I think just being able to do that allows us to move forward in a different direction than we have in the past. So I do feel we're better than we were last year when we
Mr.
announced it in
Bates,
June.
Mr.
No,
Bates.
move forward.
Please continue, Mr. Bates.
So to, finish answering your question, we still have a long way to go, but I feel a lot better than where we were. I just did not realize, we basically had to build a house when there was nothing. And we thought there was a house, but there really wasn't. So then you had to tear down a little bit of foundation that's there, redo the foundation, build everything. And we're still in the process where we can see the outline of it, but now we really have a lot more work to do, but I do feel a lot more positive about it. I think Ms. Deros has really done a phenomenal job going the roll calls, talking to the officers. But it's just not Baltimore City Police Department. It's the MTA, it's the Loyola Police Department. It is the, I think Johns Hopkins reached out. Morgan, where else have you been?
I began training University of Maryland Campus Police on June 7th. I have been to Morgan, MTA, MDTA, Loyola University, Baltimore City Police, Alcohol, Tobacco, Cannabis Commission, the Comptroller's Office, the major agencies that, the MDTA Port Police. So almost every agency has reached out for training.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ramos?
Thank you. It was mentioned just now that Johns Hopkins had also reached out for training. And I'm curious how that's, no? Oh, okay.
I am not aware that they've reached out for training. They don't have a law enforcement agency up and running yet.
Yeah.
So when they do, I'm sure we will be asked to give.
I will have a lot of questions about that, that I will reserve for that time. I will not do that now. I did have another, I'll go ahead if I
can.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I wanted to shift a little bit to the juvenile prosecutions. You had a slide at the end there that talked a lot about the fact that you're taking action as a result of what is happening. I want to make sure that our young people are also given the resources, and their families are getting interventions as well. I would rather, I understand what they're doing is not good, and a lot of times there's a lot of circumstances around what's happening. So can you talk a little bit about once a young person is touched by the justice system, making sure that them and their families are getting everything that they need so that they're not in this position again?
I'm going to have Pam want to come on up. Pam has been in the juvenile division for a number of years. She's the head of the juvenile division. And so I would just ask her to talk about that process so that everybody has an understanding of what the process really looks like. Thank you.
Sure. So the way the juvenile courts work currently is when a youth is arrested or charged by our office, they'll obviously go through the the process kind of like an adult. Their cases get arraigned, and then our cases go to trial within 30 to 60 days. And then at that point, if they're found fact sustained, which in the juvenile system is guilty, they are then assigned a case manager through the Department of Juvenile Services. Now, DJS is actually the agency that is tasked with providing the services to the youth and also with the family. And what they do is usually, if it's a first contact, they will go in and do an investigation with the family, see where they live, see what the home situation is. Are there any siblings that are also in the system? Are there any family members or parents in the system? And then at that point, they will devise a plan, and then the youth will be placed on supervision with the Department of Juvenile Services with that service plan. And then what happens is the case doesn't stop there. The case will keep coming back in approximately 30 days for reviews. That way, the case doesn't just drop off and the youth gets lost in the system. It's a way for us to also monitor that the department is doing what they're supposed to be doing for the families. And so that's the process.
So once that, so basically, you still are involved with that, right?
That is
Because we have seen cases where, or at least in my district, that sometimes all of those things are not occurring. So I can follow up with you directly on that. But it is important to me to make sure that they're getting the resources that they need so that this doesn't happen again.
Absolutely. I mean, with regards to, I guess you could say, a drop in the services or a lapse in communication. So when the cases come in every 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, depending on how the youth is doing on supervision, a report will be generated by the Department of Juvenile Services. Sometimes we don't get those reports till like 48 hours prior to the hearing, 24 hours prior to the hearing, and it's at that time that we're learning that there are issues with the family or issues with the youth. And when we get into court, unfortunately, a lot of what we see is that because the youth is represented by their own attorney, it's really about, I guess, what's needed for them versus the family. Sometimes parents are very vocal. They'll say, my kid is not doing well. We need help. We need this. We need that. But then it becomes well, what about the youth? And so there is a disconnect sometimes in that particular situation. But I mean, when we're in court, it's the state, it's the Department of Juvenile Services, the Public Defender's Office, the respondent. So we're all involved in the plan for the youth going forward.
Thank you. I'll follow up directly. Thank you.
I would also tag along to say, there was in Annapolis, they changed the law. And so one of the things that are able to do is extend periods of probation to make sure the services are really given to the young people. But they're also able to, the young people do not wish to follow or follow what DJS says in terms of the probationary period in the program. Now, unlike before, that young person now can go back before the judge so the judge can ensure those services are being given. So I think you'll see a change in terms of how this process plays out underneath the new law.
Thank you.
We've also been joined by Councilman Tony Glover, 13th District Porter.
The slide about specialty court diversion data, you mentioned that the number of people served was 1,100. Do you have a breakdown of kind of the types of specialty court or what types of issues that 1,100 persons were served?
We do. We can go ahead and get you that information. But the main courts that we have, in terms of, we have a veterans court, a veterans treatment court, and Ms. Deros runs that. One of the things that it's not just a Baltimore City, it has gotten so much focus that it's about to be a regional veterans court that we offer, veterans come back, and it's to help them, very low recidivism rate. We have the adult recovery court, and that's traditional drug treatment court. We do that in the district court, and we also have it in the circuit court. We also have a mental health court. The mental health court, one of the things I think we're beginning to see is more numbers within the mental health court. The citation docket, we also partnered with Dirt Bike with B360 to give individuals who are riding the dirt bikes, we're trying to partner with them. So those have been the main courts that we've looked at in terms of the 5 diversionary courts. When we came into office, the citation dock and the B360 diversion are two programs that we've added on the diversion style. But we also, in looking at the numbers, we need to do a lot more with the drug treatment court numbers. But the veteran treatment court is doing very well. But we're seeing a dramatic growth in our mental health court. And also, I'd actually, Irene Day.
And I'm sorry, Mr. State's Attorney, do you have a breakdown of that 1,100? So based on that 1,100, do you have like a breakdown? Is the lion's share of it dirt bikes? Is the lion's share of it addiction treatment within that 1,100?
We do. I'll get you that information. I don't have it now, but I would like to have Irene Day just talk about the mental health because I know we were talking about her numbers. If you can just
Thank you.
if she can just talk about what she's seen in terms of her numbers and what has happened with the mental, because one of the things that's very important, we're seeing more and more individuals come through mental health court. And so I would like her to just touch base very briefly with that. I do know that she has those numbers. I believe she does.
I do. Good morning.
Thank you.
My name is Irene Day. I'm the Division Chief of the District Court Mental Health Court. I'm also standing in today for Tracy Varda, who is the Circuit Court Chief of their Mental Health Court. I could tell you, we in District Mental Health Court, so far this year have 286 active cases. Last year we had 426 active cases, and in 22 there were 395. In addition, the Circuit Court this year so far has 131 active cases. Last year was 225 active cases, and in 22 was 194. We open new cases very regularly. I put data together actually on May 15th. At that time, we had 52 new open cases this year. Since the 15th, we've had 13 more added just this year. And we receive referrals also that are not necessarily included in our numbers. They're cases that people ask us to look at to see if they might be eligible or appropriate for our court. And in 22, we had 441 referrals on top of our 395 active cases. 23, we had 476 referrals on top of our 426 active cases. And this year so far, at the time I put together the data, May 15th, we had 110 so far this year. We've added 15 since May 15th. So the numbers are, I think District Mental Health Court has the highest number.
Highest, I was going to say. take a
Circuit probably has the second highest number as far as the mental health is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
We also have people who are dual diagnosed or sometimes triple diagnosed. So we have people who come to us who have drug addiction and mental health issues. We also have people who have developmental disabilities. We also serve some people who have TBI. So sometimes they have multiple things going on at the same time, but it's a specialty court that's sanctioned under the Office of Problem Solving Courts. It's been in existence. It's actually the longest running mental health court, district mental health court in the state. And the Circuit Court's been running, I think now since 2011 or 2012. So we do have a lion's share of those cases.
Thank you. And once a verdict has been set, I don't know what the correct legal terminology, but hopefully you understand. What happens to those people after a verdict has been set? So like in that mental health court, what happens after?
So the way mental health court runs, there's actually multiple tracks. So anybody who has a competency evaluation ordered or files a not criminally responsible plea, those cases would automatically come to mental health court for adjudication of those issues. The other track is the probation track, and it's actually a little bit a smaller number than the competency and the criminal responsibility. But once somebody is competent, they have to be amenable to participate. They have to want to do it. They cannot be forced into the treatment plan. So if they are interested, we would negotiate with their attorney. Usually it's the public defender. Our court has very specialized prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, probation agents, pretrial, every agency has dedicated staff to this court since its inception. Once somebody determines that they want it, there's a clinical treatment plan developed for everybody. They're all individual. Nobody, it's not one size fits all. It's very specific to each individual. Those treatment plans that are offered to those folks include a level of housing. It may be through the public mental health system if they're eligible. It could be, there are multiple levels of care in the community, so it could be intensive residential as far as housing. It could be assisted living. Some people are in a position to be able to go back home if that's an appropriate environment. It also includes medication management, treatment, therapy, vocational, day programming. So depending on what the person needs, those things are offered. If they're interested in that, they would plead into the mental health court. If they don't want to plead to the charge, they can go to trial and then return back for a treatment plan. But if they plead in or want to come into mental health court, that plan is a condition of their probation, and they're required to abide by the treatment, and there's a contract that they sign to participate in the program. So that treatment is a part of their probation, and they, unlike a regular probation where you would go out in the community and you only come back to court if there's a problem, they return regularly for reviews to make sure everything's going well, to make sure they're abiding by the terms. And if there's a violation, also, unlike a regular probation, those cases can be addressed within a week. We'll pull somebody in and try to work with them to fix whatever's going on, as opposed to have them go to the jail and wait for 30 days to have an initial violation hearing.
Burnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. State's Attorney, I did want to sort of double back to the comments by my colleague in the 4th District about the need for reporting on the citation docket. I mean, I do hear you on progress, but I do want to point out that the data that you've provided us so far is inaccurate. And I think if we're going to be putting this kind of information out publicly, it should literally add up. On the sheet here, we have 279 people broken down by race, but then there are 41 fewer outcomes. So we don't know what happened in 41 of these cases. The age, there are 28 people missing as listed. The numbers just don't track. And so I think when we talk about the need to be transparent, I think we should be both transparent with the public and with the council about what's happening in these instances, specifically because using the numbers that you have here, which are, I don't know if they're true or not, 61% of the folks that have received these citations are Black and brown folks, presumably. We don't know how many are Latino, which is a huge segment of this population. We don't have information on the geography of where these citations have been issued. And, looking at the data here, we have 16% that received a much more serious outcome, which was a bench warrant. But we don't know if that's BPD issuing the warrant, is that MTA. So I want to push back pretty heavily that I do think we do need to do more reporting here, because you've stated several times in the media and before this body that this is a priority for you. And so if it's a priority, I think that the information provided should be accurate.
Well, I would agree it should be accurate. Now, we don't know why some of this information may not be here. For instance, we are only as good as the information that we receive from the citation. So when it comes to the race and all of that, if the officers haven't filled out the race in terms of whether the person's Latino or not, we don't necessarily know. That's why you do have the other. They don't necessarily know. But
well, respectfully, that it does say not specified. But what I'm saying is, if I'm to compare the outcome of the number of people that you have here, it should be directly proportional to the number of people that are listed.
I understand.
It sounds like the information is incomplete, not inaccurate.
There's literally 279 people with 236 outcomes and 251 broken down by age. That's inaccurate.
No. Incomplete. We don't have all of the data.
Yeah, I don't have all the data.
I don't know that. Is there? Wait, hang on.
So we don't know what happened to 41 people?
That doesn't make it inaccurate. That doesn't mean it's false information. It means it's, okay. No, you said inaccurate. It's incomplete. I think that's what I'm saying, or that's what the state's attorney's trying to say.
And for us, we will look at the citations, But rest assured, the only thing we have, and it does bother me in the sense that you automatically assumed that we did this intentionally,
I didn't say that.
but you're saying it's inaccurate.
Sir,
But
I'm just
our
going by
whole
what
thing is,
what you provided me right here.
and I understand,
This is a
but what
public
I will
hearing
do is
about
this, we will
the
sit
outcome of
down,
the
we will
data
sit
here.
down and we will look at every single citation. But we will look at the citation based on the information we have on the citation. We can even, give you the citation so that you can sit down and look at it to make sure that it's what it says here. We wanted to give you a glimpse of everything that we're having here with the citation docket. Without a doubt, we have to get this right. And the only way you can get this right is to be able to have the data. We have more data now than we had before, and we will next year even have more data as we continue to build this program out. Now, there could be a number of different reasons, but at the end of the day, I would not say that it's inaccurate. I would say that it's incomplete, and there's so much more data that we have to have. But what is clear is I'll have Ms. Deros answer the question now.
So our database with information that you requested us to collect was completed in January of 2024. I had to take citations back from July 1, 2023 through December 2023 and January and backfill all the information on the citation that was available to me at the time. There was information missing. There may have been citations missing because they were processed so long ago that we didn't know all of the citations. The court added citations that did not make it into the database in a timely manner. So starting in January, we have all the data going forward if they were provided on the citation. The information's pulled from the judiciary charging document, and that's how our database is populated. I don't think it's reasonable for me to hand fill all of the information on every citation that comes through to verify what was in the police charging document and what is in our database. And I do not believe that the Latino community is considered white on the citations, and in the Baltimore City Police, they are not considered a separate ethnicity when they do that. Every citation I've seen, when I know it's a Spanish-speaking or Hispanic individual, is listed as a white person on the citation. And that goes across all law enforcement agencies.
So just to be clear, you all are documenting Black and brown people or Latino people from brown countries as being white people.
We're documenting what
We don't document.
what the law enforcement agencies
enforcement
are
agencies
documenting
doing
them
that.
and providing that information through electronic transfer of information.
So, and this is what back to my original point about the need for us to do this right. It sounds like the rush to roll this out is being sloppy. It sounds like there's a lack of uniform training across law enforcement agencies, and I'm not saying that's on you. Clearly, you're doing your job to do roll call. I'm going to put that on the state's attorney's office. There seems to be inconsistencies in which law enforcement agencies are doing what and how the information is being reported out. And so it's making it very difficult for this body to have a very clear picture of what's actually happening with this particular program. And so I think when we talk about the need for accurate reporting and more transparency, I asked you for this when you first rolled this out, Mr. State's Attorney, respectfully, and we've gotten less data this year than we did last year. And the same response last year when I asked about the need for reporting was that we'd have it in a couple months. And now we're here again, we're saying we'll have it in a couple months, yet we're still proceeding with this program. And I just don't think that if there are integrity issues, whether that's lie in your office, the judiciary, or with law enforcement, that we should continue to do this if we're not getting it right and we can't paint a clear picture of actually what's happening.
Well, I respectfully disagree. I think we are working to get this right. And anytime you're trying to build something from the ground up, you're going to have problems, you're going to have issues, and we're moving to try to fix and correct those issues because it's not just one organization. You have multiple organizations and multiple groups of people that are trying to get it right. Now, in reference to the racial reporting, we're not law enforcement. Law enforcement reports it how they report it. We're trying to get that information to give you the information that you've asked for. Also with the data, we can only give so much data based on what the citations say. So I can understand the frustration because believe me, there's no one who's going to be more frustrated about this policy and process than myself, Ms. Giros, in our office because we're really working. At the end of the day, the residents want us to do something in reference to the citations or the quality of life crime. We're trying to do something. We're moving in a direction. And I do understand, you know, you've asked for the data. We've tried to give you the data that we have that you've asked for. Is everything perfect this moment in time? No, it's not perfect at this moment in time. But, you know, we have gone from where we started to where we are has grown greatly. And what it was also doing is, I think, there are fewer people sometimes committing some of these actions. One of the things that's also very frustrating with the police is, okay, let's give more data. Well, sometimes they're not writing a citation because they approach and that behavior, now they've stopped the behavior immediately. And therefore, that's not data that we would necessarily see. It's not anywhere. And so we've learned a great deal about this process. I've always said we're continuing to grow, we're continuing to work in progress. That's why we do have these discussions. And in having these discussions, we're constantly understanding what we need to fix, what we need to change. And, you know, without a doubt, I feel that, you know, we have come leaps and bounds from where we were before to where we are now. And I do understand the frustration with the data. But at the end of the day, you know, we have more now than we had before in terms of understanding the number of people and where we're heading.
Just a quick follow-up. Which office designed the citation?
Design the physical citation?
Yes.
Is that BPD? The physical citation, who designed it?
The judiciary.
The judiciary?
It's a charging document. that is
I mean, like the physical piece of paper that law enforcement.
So the charging document is a charging document that was created by the Maryland courts. It is a charging document that is used statewide.
So that the physical docket, the piece of paper that the multitude of law enforcement agencies was developed by the judiciary. And on that form, they do not have any information to help us understand the third largest group of people in the city of Baltimore on that form.
There is a box or a section that asks for ethnicity, but it is never filled out.
Okay.
And it's not filled out by any law enforcement agencies.
We're gonna move on now. Glover?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, how many subpoenas have the field investigators taken care of, within the NAS? Just better. How many of your field investigators been out the subpoena, give out subpoenas within the last, let's say the beginning of the year? You can chop it down. If you can go down to the last 30 days, that's possible as well. As far as the investigators, the subpoenas, how many have you issued within the last month, or you can begin at the beginning of the year?
In the last 30 days, we've issued from our division chief meeting starting April the 17th, from the last division chief meeting to May 15th, we have issued 95 subpoenas from 120 building, from the ASAs who requested those subpoenas to be served, 95 altogether.
Okay.
For that month.
For the last 30 days, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Do you have any that can extend with the beginning of the year?
And yeah, for the beginning of the year, you're talking
January.
about the entire year? The entire year from last year. I haven't completed the one for this year, but the entire year from January the 1st to December 31st of 2023, we have served 1,078 subpoenas. My 4 field investigators, 1,078.
All right, thank you. My next question is, with the citation docket, where are you guys at now with the administration, the police department, as far as, are you guys receiving the citations from the police department? And also, and the reason why I asked, and I just want to know if it's really necessary, only because of the fact that, like in my district, I've seen an a decrease of crime of 46%. That's the Eastern District. And these without like the citations and things of that nature, it's just collaboratively the department, the community, my office, and other agencies working together to kind of combat the crime that we had played in our neighborhood. Just want to know where you guys are at with that right now. Is it work still in progress, or do we see, like in other parts of the districts around the city, those citations are being handled?
Well, I'll answer the first question because I kind of two-part. The first part, we're working very collaboratively with the administration as well as the police department. We've had trainings. Everybody's on the same sheet of music, understanding the citation docket, using it as a way to try to focus on some of the quality of life crimes. So we feel very good about that. But a lot of it, it's a heavy lift. There's a lot that we did not necessarily have in place, citations, general orders, policies in the police department, having to change that and things like that to remove some of the barriers that's made it a little more difficult. In reference to seeing the crime drop, one of the things that people don't realize is that our office is taking a number of individuals who are causing those crimes out of the community, a large number of those individuals. I know the U.S. Attorney's Office, I'm not mistaken, I believe they had a potential federal investigation that took a number of individuals. And if I'm not mistaken, I think our maybe even our MIU even had a large-scale operation. So there are a lot of things that happen in the community when you take these trigger pullers out. For instance, you know, we put almost, I think, 169 individuals, 390 total individuals that are now removed from the community in Baltimore City that were the trigger pullers, that were causing the violence, that were taking the lives of individuals. Those individuals are now gone from the community, a minimum of 5 years without the possibility of parole, long enough to be rehabilitated to change. So when they do come home, they can come home to an environment where they can get a job, they can be positive role models in the community. So they're not gone and we're not throwing them away. But I think when you begin to see those types of individuals removed from the community, that's when you begin to see communities begin to grow and thrive and flourish again. People are willing to come back out. People are willing to do things. People are willing to invest. And that's without a doubt. It's not just our office, let's be clear. You have ROCA that's doing a great work. You have the GVRS program. You have the MONSA. You have the community. You have the faith-based. Everybody is doing their part, but however, we do recognize in terms of the enforcement, if we do not get those individuals who are intimidating, who are giving fear to individuals to come out and be a part of the community, those individuals had to be removed from the community. I do not enjoy doing that, but unfortunately, that's part of what this job entails, to get those individuals out of the community, have safe communities.
So you're seeing, you know, progression in the citation dockets.
Well, we're seeing progression in the citation. There are two different things, because the other part I was talking about in terms of where you see the change in the community and crime dropping significantly. We do see progression in the sense that more citations are being written, that we're now able to train, we're able to remove some of those barriers that caused problems with us before with the citation docket. So we're seeing steps by steps. Remember, we started this process the end of June of last year. And so it's taken a little time to get everybody on board. It's taken time to remove some of the policies. It's taken time for the training. And so all of that. Well, we have a number of other agencies that are also in some of the communities that are writing the citations as well.
When you say other agencies, are you speaking like MTA?
Baltimore
City Public
like
Schools?
Loyola, Morgan State over there on the east side.
Okay.
Some of those organizations such as that. And so it's we're trying to build something from nothing, and it is frustrating at times. However, there's a lot of work, and people put a lot of work in this. But what I am very optimistic about is having had the conversation with the mayor, having had the conversation with the police commissioner, to know that this is something in terms of focus on the quality of life crimes that everybody is focused on.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to note, given all the conversation around a citation docket, I would think it would be really, really helpful to work with the city stat team to think about metrics that'll be helpful in informing whether or not the process is working and whether or not it's having the outcomes that we want to see. The data is going to be really, really important in determining whether or not you guys want to continue to invest time, effort, and money, both in the police department side and the state's attorney side, and seeing this policy through. So I would, of course, recommend working with the mayor's team there. My next question is actually about victim services. I'm really curious how you think we're doing. Serving people who are witnesses and victims of crimes. How's that service working out? How do you think the city's doing? And how well do we coordinate with the other offices that, if we do coordinate, with the other offices that offer victim and witness services to folks involved in crimes?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. I think we're doing a lot better job. I know, for instance, let's talk about Brooklyn. We were on the ground with Monzi. We were on the ground with BPD. We've moved a number of people. I feel like the communication, the coordination has been a lot better. One of the things that we did when we took over was they were all working from home. So now they're coming in. They understand and meet the witness and victims. But it's Amanda Grantham. She was one of the first hires that we took from the Baltimore County State's Attorney's Office, because as a defense attorney, when I realized they always had their witnesses and victims, and if they didn't have their witnesses and victims, they knew where they were going to be. And so when I realized the infrastructure and the brainchild behind that was Ms. Grantham and her team, so we actually took her entire team from Baltimore County and brought her here to Baltimore City, and I allow her to explain the process and how she feels.
Good morning, thank you. So one thing that has been a big change is really the infrastructure. We are really using our technology to make sure that every single case is assigned to a victim witness coordinator. So I think that has been a huge leap that we have made, that we're just really using our case management system to make sure that no one gets left out. There is always a victim witness coordinator assigned to a circuit court case, a district court case, and then our SVU district court cases. The second thing that we've really done is BPD Victim Services, Monzi Victim Services, and our Victim Services team. We are really active. We work together as a group. So we were meeting bi-weekly. We've actually increased that. We meet every single week. So Monzi's Victim Services, BPD, and us, every week we're on a Teams call to discuss victims, witnesses, and then maybe secondary victims or witnesses where they're not necessarily a part of our case, but so where Monzi can step in and they can take the lead. So we're in constant communication where maybe we have a victim or witness and we have relocated them, but they need employment services and that's not really something that is in our wheelhouse. Then Monzi is actively working with them to work on getting employment for these individuals. We all are constantly just making sure that we know what each other is doing. And I think that was one of the big things that was missing. And I think that every single, BPD's director and the director and Monzi, we all agreed, we need to work smarter and not harder, and we need to stop fighting each other, and we just need to work collectively as a team to make sure that our victims and witnesses get the services that they need. And make sure that there's constant communication. If they need somebody is there. The ASAs are in court. They're constantly busy. They're prosecuting our crimes. They are doing the jobs that they are supposed to be doing. So let the people that have the heart and the compassion and that really can have the hands-on touch, and we're in our offices and we can have those communications. Let us be that support for them. So I think that we've just made leaps and bounds working together collaboratively and smartly, and then really just using the technology that we have.
That's really, really good to hear. And I'm glad you guys are meeting regularly, because I think one of the big questions that I had was how we separate the responsibilities around victim and witness services amongst the three different services. So I'm glad you're meeting regularly. I don't know if you guys would be able to pull this together, or if all three you should pull it together. So maybe that's a request to the administration as well. But I would be curious to figure out how we divide out the various responsibilities. You gave the example of employment and maybe not the direct victims, but family and friends that are associated with those situations that might be helpful for stabilizing generally a family or a group of victims. So I'd be curious if, I'll make that an official request, Would you be able to provide a breakdown of the differences between the different victim services units that the city offers between the state's attorney, Monty, and BPD, so that we understand what's the difference?
Yeah, so we actually, our Chief of Staff, Angela Galliano, and I have been working with all of the agencies, and we actually have two different versions of a flow chart.
Great.
You know, internally what it looks like for us where we need to know specifics within the different agencies, and then one for just one of our victims or witnesses, someone that is a civilian that isn't within our agencies, so that way they can simply look at a flow chart and be like, yes, no, this is where I need to go. As far as a specific list, like, yes, we can absolutely give you a list of what each one of us, we have decided are our roles and our lanes. But really the flow chart is huge in allowing us to know where each person comes in and where each agency is able to service them.
That would be great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I would like to chime in as well. When we saw the chart about the convictions from 47% up to 67%, that can be directly attributed to the victim witness, because we're now having the buy-in of the witnesses and victims that want to and are willing to come to court. So the prosecutors can say, tell the court and to the defense attorney that I've spoken to my witness, I've spoken to my victim, they're on call and they can be here. And that has allowed us to be able to hold more individuals, specifically the violent offenders, accountable.
Big part of why I asked. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Porter? Ramos? Ramos is gone. Okay. Burnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. State's Attorney, we had a public safety hearing on February 14th and was with the police department. And in that hearing, it was noted that in 2023, there were 753 warnings given by the Baltimore Police Department for citation, like I guess in lieu of a citation, a warning. And most of those, according to Major Brown, were centered in the Fells Point neighborhood alone. Do you all track where, by this data that you have in front of us, by racial demographic, by neighborhood, where warnings are being issued and where they are not being issued?
The one thing I will say is, one, we don't issue the warnings the police do.
Well, that's why I said the police.
The police. What I'll say is that has been, I don't want to say a bone of contention, is trying to have an understanding of how we can record that data. Because outside of being on the body camera, they don't interact, they don't understand the person's name, their information, they walk up, and sometime before they can even issue a warning, they walk away. But in terms of actually how we track that data, the police department, we don't know how they would. I'll ask Ms. Deros if she would have any ideas.
We have no information on how many warnings are issued and which districts they're issued in.
Well, I mean, clearly BPD's tracking it.
The BPD may track it, but
you're not.
They do not communicate that with us.
Well, I think that might be helpful because in your opening comments, you mentioned that the number of citations issued were proportional to the race of the city. And yet we see that in one neighborhood alone, 750, and I'm not saying I don't know the race of these people, so I can't take that step, but it appears to be that I think that we do need to be collecting this information because, and I just want to say, like, I'm not a fan of this program, and I think I've been pretty open about that the entire time. And my concern is that it creates an additional opening and interactions with law enforcement for crimes that are, yes, they are quality of life issues, but quality of life issues exist everywhere. And so if one neighborhood is getting 753 warnings and another neighborhood is getting no warnings and they're just getting citations, and I'd like to say, I'm pretty sure if we looked at the data, that there would be a black and brown disparity here when we talk about where warnings are being issued and where they're not. But again, I don't want to step that far without the data. But again, this is where I'm saying is that we need this information if we're going to push this program forward. And I say this because we are currently under consent decree. And so if we're asking law enforcement agencies, particularly the Baltimore Police Department, to increase their interactions with folks for low-level crimes, then we need to make sure that that's being done equitably. It's done with intentionality. And if there are a neighborhood that has 750 warnings, 53 warnings last year alone, and I'm certain that that was probably on the higher end compared to some other communities, we're not going in the right direction, in my opinion, with this particular program without having the data to drive the decision-making in the direction of it.
I think when the police talk about the warning, it is at that moment in time, it stops the behavior. And so, when I talk to the police department, one of the things is, and with this, if we're stopping the behavior, then I think that's a positive thing. And if you're stopping the behavior without the police interaction, I think in terms of writing the citation and coming to court, I think that's a positive. How do we record that? I don't know. That's why we're talking to the police department, talking to Axiom, how they could potentially record that with the body camera footage. I think that's on the horizon to eventually get that data. But right now, that's something you would need Axiom, who provides the body camera footage and all, the body camera. That's something how they would try to. And we were trying to have those conversations to figure out, hey, how do you record these interactions? And to me, it's very, very important as well to make sure that we're not disproportionately focused on one particular one particular group, one particular neighborhood. I think that's important. For instance, we're just trying now to figure out, well, what's Western District doing in terms of warning? That's why I'm saying it's difficult to get everybody on the same page, but the police department's policies, some of them have made it difficult, but we're understanding those policies more.
Mr. Chair, if I could intervene.
I just want to close on my point here. The point I'm trying to get at, Mr. State's Attorney, and to my colleagues here, is that if we are, there's a history, documented history of law enforcement giving a slack for folks who don't look like me and folks getting a certain outcome, a citation, folks who do, who look like us. And that's how we ended up in the consent decree in the first place. The data in that report supports that behavior by the police department and other law enforcement agencies. And what I'm saying is that if this is going to be a priority by the chief prosecutor of the city of Baltimore, then we have to get it right. And I think for context matters. If folks are, I've asked you before about what type of citations or crimes are we issued. You said, well, whatever's in the books. Well, there's stuff in the books that says if you don't stand for the national anthem, you can get a citation. It's literally in there. You guys can quote me on that. But if somebody's drinking a beer at a Ravens game, right, or sitting on their stoop on Pennsylvania Avenue drinking a beer, and they're getting a citation, but the folks who are drunk then Fells Point aren't, that's not equitable. That's not the direction we should be going in. And I think your office has made this a priority, so you should be driving this forward to say, I want this to be enforced. Either everybody's getting warnings if the behaviors change, and that's the priority here, is to not have any interaction at all, or we need to look at the data and see, well, maybe we need to be retraining folks in the Central District to determine, hey, what's going on here? Because, in the Southwest or the Western or other places, they're giving a more certain outcome that folks in Fells Point, Canton, and Fed Hill are not.
All right, we're going to move on. Councilman Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to note, because we talked a lot about this issue, particularly in the Public Safety Committee, and my colleague was there as well. I'm not sure where you got the data from, because we specifically asked from the police department if they could share that data, and they said they don't collect it because it's such a ephemeral interaction. When they go up to someone and say, hey, look, you can't stand here, you can't, drink here, or whatever the case is, they don't necessarily record those interactions. I've requested that data a number of times. So
Respectfully, Mr. Chair.
Hold on. Councilman Burnett, you do not have the floor. Councilman Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just I want to be careful not to jump to conclusions on data that we've been specifically told does not exist from the chief of police. So I think, and there's also an important piece here. There's also
Councilman, hold on. Everyone stop. Everyone stop. One person has the floor at a time. Councilman Conway has the floor. Councilman Burnett, you have a 30-second opportunity to respond to him after, 30 seconds in total. Councilman Conway, please continue.
Yeah, and I think there's also an important piece here. We have different agencies that are overseeing different parts of this process. The state's attorney does not control what an officer does on the street. And why I recommend it would be really important for instance, City Stat to look at this data, because they would be able to go to the police commissioner and get, understand the breakdown of data. They would also be able to take some of the citation and prosecution data that comes from thereafter and break that down in a way that makes sense. But getting a piece of the story from the state's attorney does not answer any of the questions about interactions that officers are having on the street. I agree with you 100%. We don't want this program to disproportionately affect people of color, flat out, 100%. You're not going to find anybody that wants that to happen. I think the reality is we don't have that initial interaction. And a big part of this is addressing those quality of life crimes. When you have old ladies that can't go to a grocery store because there's drug dealing in front of the grocery store, there are people dealing with those issues today. When I can't go into my district office because there's someone selling drugs right in front of my door, that's an issue. And I think the whole purpose of the policy was to figure out if there is a way to address those issues. So just a note, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to add that. We want to be careful. We don't have that data. And if we do have any estimation or whatever, the police chief specifically said, or representatives from the police department said that they don't collect that data in that way. I've asked for it a number of times. I've asked for them to try to collect it. They don't. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Burnett.
You said I get an
30
opportunity to
seconds.
respond, and the reason I respond the way I did because the chair respectfully asked where I got it from. We're literally watching the video of him ask the question, and the major round of the police department responds with the number that I stated. So if you're going to question the numbers that I'm using the video that you're in, Mr. Chair. And so if the point that I'm trying to raise
Which
is that
chair you're referring to? That chair.
Conway
Thank
of
you.
the Public Safety Committee is in the video that I was referring to. And so I think to the point that I'm trying to raise here is that if we are in year 2, if I'm correct, of a priority program by the state's attorney's office and the Baltimore City Police Department and any number of law enforcement agencies that are participating in this, there are clear issues with the implementation of the program, and this council has not been provided the data to properly assess the effectiveness of it. That is just true. And I think we're all saying that. I don't think I'm saying anything different here than anyone else is. But with any other program here, when we talk about recycling pickup or anything else, we hold every other agency accountable to the data. We ask Safe Streets for how many interactions they're having. What are the outcomes of that? I think that this program deserves the same level of oversight that we put into managing Safe Streets and MONSI and GVRS and every other program here that we spend a lot of hearings on. Squeegee boys have had an inordinate amount of conversation about it, and we're asking for the same number of information here. So I don't think I'm
Councilman,
out of pocket here. You gave him an amount of time to respond.
I gave you a minute and a half.
Okay.
To not ask a question. I extended a courtesy.
All right.
I think that your point has been
Thank you, Mr.
adequately
Chair.
made, and I think we have a lot of good questions to ask the police department when they come here.
All right, and I will have the same line of questions for the police department.
May I say something?
Outstanding. We've also been joined by Councilman John Block, 9th District State's Attorney. You have 30 seconds, please.
The program isn't even a year old. It's not a year old. The program we had to build over from scratch. And I definitely understand. I do think it was a great idea from Councilman Conaway with City Stat. These are the same questions that I've been asking. But what makes this program unique and different is that we are relying on the police department and we're relying on so many different agencies, but we also have the rules in terms of the law to follow with the courts in terms of what they've already put together. So we're trying to bring a lot together. It's almost as if we're trying to bring everybody to work collaboratively on something that didn't exist. I understand the frustration, but to be where we are within actually 11 months is absolutely amazing. There was nothing here. The citizens demand that we do something about quality of life crimes. If you look to see, people are leaving the city because of quality of life crimes. I just want us to do something, and we feel like we are.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I offer something very quickly?
15 seconds.
I just want to offer that as a part of Police Stat, we actually do have a section that's focused on the citation docket. And so I'm happy to work with the state's attorney's office to look at other metrics that should be added to that. What I would offer is that this probably should call for a third-party review and analysis and not just city stat, but I'm happy to add it to city stat.
Thank you. Okay. Councilman Block, you have not asked any questions. Would you like to ask a question?
The questions I would ask have been asked.
Outstanding. Didn't mean to spot you like that. Okay. Glover? Conway? Come back to you. Okay. Porter? Okay. Ramos? Burnett?
Yes, Mr. Chair. On a different topic, can you provide, I know your office has, you came in, you said that there was, a lot of sort of assessment looking at, with attorneys, what programs you're going to be implementing, priorities, that kind of thing. One of the other issues I care a lot about is the issue of human trafficking. Can you talk about where we stand currently in your office with prosecutions, with work? I know a lot of, your work also involves working with the feds. I do want to thank you for leaning in and supporting the Human Trafficking Collaborative. Your office has been great, a great partner in that, and the law enforcement subcommittee. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, when you look at human trafficking and prostitution, as you know, they look similar. They look very similar when you're out there. And so for us, it's trying to find a balance. One of the things that our office still hasn't done is really haven't focused on the prosecution of prostitution, because we don't want to go ahead and just cause more trauma to individuals that have already been traumatized. But we also have a duty and job to protect those individuals of human trafficking. So I've asked Deputy Solomon, Jesse Howerson, the head of my SVU division, and we're sitting down and talking to some of the advocates to figure out the best way to come up with a plan and program to work with the advocates, to work with Baltimore City Police Department, to engage individuals that we may believe could be human trafficked, to bring them in a safe place, in a safe space. We're working on that, and hopefully before sometime in the next few months or so, we should actually have laid out a whole plan. But what we plan will be unique will be the advocates are part of this process to ensure that we're not re-traumatizing the individuals that have been sex trafficked, making sure that we put them in a safe place, in a safe space, to get them to the safe space and safe place that they need to be in to protect them, but also individuals who are doing prostitution, to give them the services that they may need, that they are available to them. So we don't want to rush and just re-traumatize individuals, just grab individuals that's happened in the past. We really felt we need to bring the advocate community in so that we could do this from an educational standpoint that doesn't traumatize, but allows us to focus on the individuals who've been human trafficked. We're still in that process, but we have been meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Conway?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My next question is around the body camera review. Can you tell me a little bit about our capacity there, how we're making sure that we are accurately able to review these body cams and use that towards our efforts?
So the body camera review division, we were trying to get money last year. The governor was able to give us $1.7 million. It took a while for the Board of Estimates to be able to release the positions. So they're funded this year and next year, and there are 10 positions, paralegal positions. We're in the process of now hiring, because the Board of Estimates just released the money May 15th. We're in the process of hiring 10 paralegals that will look at the body camera footage. Right now we have 3, and that's very important. The reason that's so important is because one of the things is we found out our district attorneys and our attorneys that are in some of the violent felony units such as GVED, the gun violence, they were spending all their time looking at body camera footage. So for instance, you would have 10 officers at the crime scene for an hour, and they'd have their body camera footage on. That prosecutor could be in district court now is looking at 10 hours of body camera footage for that one case. And what we realize that when we have the body camera division is through our evidence review division, when they are able to look at the body camera footage with these 10 paralegals, tab, so you're out there for an hour, but only 3 minutes are important. Tab those 3 minutes, send it to the prosecutor looks at it and uses that to understand and put their case together. So instead of spending 10 hours or 11 hours of preparation, now it's only an hour, and that helps with retention of prosecutors as well.
Got it. And so we have 3 now. We're trying to ramp up to 13?
13, yes.
Got it.
13 paralegals that would do that, and we're actually in the process of hiring, interviewing. Our goal is to have that division up and running by sometime the end of August, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions? State's Attorney Bates, thank you to you and your entire team that came today, as well as everyone back at the office or in court working. My humble opinion, you all are doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
So thank you for what you all continue to do every single day. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you. We're now in
Thank you.
recess until 1 p.m. for fire and OEM, for the fire department and OEM. Thank you.